The letter that became a knife. Maya Whitmore learned early in life that dignity could be taken from you in seconds, even if it took years to rebuild it. On the morning everything shattered, she stood in the lobby of Calderon Global wearing a blazer she'd pressed twice, hands clasped tightly around a leather folder she could barely afford. The building rose above her like a monument to power, steel, glass, money. People like her were meant to pass through quietly, unnoticed, grateful just to be allowed inside. She inhaled slowly, steadying herself. This was supposed to be a good day. At 25, Maya had clawed her way from a forgotten industrial town into one of the most competitive media firms in the country. Her mother cleaned offices at night. Her father passed away before she learned how to ask him for advice. Everything she had, every credential, every late night, every skipped meal, had been earned the hard way. And yet, none of that mattered the moment he walked into a room. Adrian Cole. CEO. Visionary. Billionaire before 40. And unknowingly, the man who had taken over her heart. Maya never planned to fall in love with him. She knew better than that. She was a junior strategy analyst, one of the invisible ones who prepared decks no one remembered and stayed quiet in meetings where louder voices dominated. But Adrian was different behind closed doors. He noticed her work. He asked questions. Once, after a brutal client presentation, he stayed behind and helped her reframe her strategy instead of blaming her like everyone else had. He praised her insight, her restraint, her integrity. And when he smiled, rarely briefly, it felt like sunlight breaking through a storm. Maya mistook respect for safety. And admiration for permission. The letter came from exhaustion, not recklessness. At 1:47 a.m., after 12 hours of revisions and an empty apartment waiting for her, Maya sat at her kitchen table with a pen trembling between her fingers. She didn't write to seduce. She didn't ask for anything. She just told the truth. She wrote about how his leadership had changed her life. How his quiet kindness mattered more than his power. How seeing someone at the top still choose fairness gave her hope. And yes, she admitted she had feelings. Carefully. Gently. With no expectations. I don't need an answer, she wrote. I just needed you to know. She didn't even sign her last name. Just Maya. And the next morning, before fear could stop her, she slipped the envelope onto his desk. By 10:30 a.m. the email arrived. Mandatory all-staff meeting. Conference Hall A. Immediate attendance. Maya's stomach turned to ice. The conference hall buzzed with speculation as employees filled the rows. Maya took a seat near the back, pulse racing, convincing herself she was being paranoid. Then Adrian entered. His presence still commanded silence. His expression was unreadable, too calm, too distant. He didn't greet anyone. He didn't sit. He stood at the head of the room and held something in his hand. A cream-colored envelope. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. This morning, Adrian began, his voice cool and precise, I found a personal letter on my desk. A romantic letter. From an employee. A murmur rippled through the room. Maya couldn't breathe. Let me be absolutely clear, he continued. This organization does not tolerate emotional impropriety masquerading as admiration. He unfolded the paper. Maya's words. Her heart. And then, without hesitation, he tore it in half. The sound was sharp. Final. Gasps filled the room as he tore it again. And again. Feelings have no place here, Adrian said. Infatuation is not ambition. And sentimentality is not professionalism. The pieces fell onto the table like snow. Maya didn't cry. She couldn't. Her body had shut down to survive. She stared straight ahead, nails digging into her palms, while 50 people tried to guess who had just been publicly destroyed. When the meeting ended, no one spoke to her. But they knew. Somehow they always know. Maya locked herself in the bathroom and slid down the stall wall, shaking. She didn't sob. She shook, like something broken beyond repair. That day she didn't quit. She did something worse. She disappeared. Within 48 hours, she accepted an international transfer to a division no one cared about. No farewell. No explanations. Only a promise whispered to her reflection. I will never beg for respect again. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that the moment Adrian tore that letter, he realized too late what he'd done. And that the man who humiliated her would one day kneel before the woman she would become. The place where broken people become dangerous. Maya didn't fly away from New York like a woman chasing a promotion. She fled like someone escaping a fire, hair still smelling like smoke, lungs still burning. The transfer letter hit her inbox within hours of her request, almost as if the company had been waiting for her to slip up so they could move her out of sight. Calderon Global's Southeast Asia branch wasn't glamorous. It was a support hub, the kind of place headquarters forgot existed unless something went wrong. Bangkok. A city that never slept, where neon lights distracted you from the ache of your own thoughts. The first week, Maya didn't explore. She didn't even unpack fully. She lived out of a suitcase like she might run again at any moment. Every night, the same sound haunted her. The rip of paper, the crowd's silence, the coldness in Adrian Cole's voice. At the office, people treated her like a rumor. A transfer from headquarters always came with whispers. Some said she'd failed a major project. Some said she'd gotten into trouble. Others, usually the ones who smiled too much, tried to fish for details, like gossip was currency and her pain was a convenient paycheck. Maya kept her head down and spoke only when necessary. But she worked. Not the way she used to work, hoping someone would notice, hoping someone would praise her. Now she worked like she was forging steel. The Bangkok branch managed crisis communications and regional campaigns for dozens of markets. The work was relentless, the deadlines brutal, the team understaffed. Most people burned out within months. Maya didn't burn out. She hardened. Her new director, Niran Southam, was a sharp-eyed strategist with the kind of authority that didn't need volume. He watched her in meetings the way a chess player watches a piece they haven't decided how to use yet. On her third week, a major client threatened to cancel a multi-million-dollar contract after a social media scandal. The senior managers panicked. They pushed blame, they formed committees, they delayed decisions. Maya stayed silent until the end. Then she spoke. Quietly. Clearly. Her plan wasn't flashy. It was precise. An accountability statement that didn't sound like an apology written by lawyers, a phased campaign that amplified community voices instead of corporate slogans, and a partnership with local organizations that turned criticism into collaboration. Niran stared at her like she just switched on a light in a dark room. "Who taught you to think like this?" he asked. Maya's throat tightened. Pain taught her. But she didn't say that. She said, "I listen. Then I decide." The plan worked. Within 48 hours, public sentiment shifted. The client renewed the contract. Headquarters sent a brief congratulatory email, cold, generic, impersonal. But Niran called her into his office. "You've been hiding," he said. Maya blinked. "I'm doing my job." "No," he replied, leaning forward slightly. "You're doing everyone's job. And you're doing it like you don't expect to be treated fairly, so you compensate by being perfect." Maya's hands tightened around her notebook. Niran's voice softened. "Someone hurt you at headquarters." She didn't answer. He didn't push. He just nodded once as if he'd confirmed something he already suspected. "Here," he said, "we judge by results, not whispers. But results also earn protection." Protection. Maya hadn't heard that word in a long time. After that, things changed, slowly, quietly, but decisively. Niran put her in charge of higher-stakes accounts. He placed her at the table with executives who didn't usually look twice at junior analysts. He made it clear that her voice mattered. And Maya began to remember something she'd forgotten. That respect was not something you begged for. It was something you required. Outside of work, she rebuilt herself like someone carefully reconstructing a house after a storm. She began taking Muay Thai classes, not because she wanted to fight but because she wanted to feel strong in her body again. She learned how to throw a punch, how to block, how to breathe through pressure. Every strike was a release. Every bruise reminded her she could take impact and stay standing. She stopped apologizing for taking space. She cut her hair into a sharper style. She wore colors that looked like confidence instead of camouflage. She started walking with her shoulders back, her eyes level, her presence undeniable. And she stopped dating the idea of love. She didn't want butterflies. She wanted peace. 2 years passed. 2 years of sleepless nights turning into controlled mornings. 2 years of lessons learned the hard way. 2 years of becoming someone who didn't flinch at the sound of tearing paper. By the time Maya turned 27, she wasn't a transfer anymore. She was a force. Her campaigns broke regional records. She led cross-market teams. She negotiated partnerships that even headquarters couldn't ignore. She became known as the woman who could turn chaos into clarity. Then the day came when she earned something she never expected. A feature in an international business magazine. The headline called her one of the most impactful new leaders in global communications. Her mother called her crying. "Baby," her mom whispered over the phone, "your father he would have been so proud." Maya stared out over the Bangkok skyline and swallowed the lump in her throat. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel something warm. Not love. Not hope. Something steadier. Pride. But life doesn't let you heal peacefully without testing whether you truly healed. The test arrived on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Her assistant, a bubbly intern named Ploy, knocked softly on her office door, eyes wide. "Ms. Whitmore," she said, "there's a call from New York." Maya's heart paused. She kept her face neutral. "Who?" Ploy glanced down at the note. It says, "Executive Operations. Mr. Grant Holloway." Grant Holloway was Calderon Global's chief operations officer, second only to Adrian Cole. Maya took the call. His voice was smooth, confident, the voice of a man used to moving people like pieces. "Maya Whitmore," he said warmly, as if they were old friends. "It's been too long." Maya didn't match his tone. "Mr. Holloway, how can I help you?" He got straight to it. "A major acquisition is underway. One that will change Calderon Global permanently. We're acquiring Maraway Media, $12 billion. We need someone who can manage the public integration across multiple markets." Maya listened without reacting. Grant continued, "Your name is the first on the list. We want you back in New York for 6 months." Silence. New York wasn't a city to her. It was a memory with teeth. Grant added, as if casually, "Adrian specifically requested you." Maya's fingers tightened on the receiver. Of course he did. Of course the man who tore her heart in half still felt entitled to summon her back like she was property that had wandered too far. Grant sensed her hesitation and sweetened the offer. "Your salary will be doubled during the project. Full expenses. Executive housing. And if this goes well, you'll be positioned for vice president within the year." Vice president. It was everything she once dreamed of. But the dream had changed. Now it wasn't about being chosen. It was about choosing herself. Maya's voice stayed calm. "When would I need to arrive?" 2 weeks, Grant said quickly, relieved. "We'll send the formal documents today." The call ended. Maya sat still in her chair, eyes unfocused. Her office felt suddenly too small. She could hear rain tapping the window like impatient fingers. 2 years ago she would have refused out of fear. Now fear didn't get to make her decisions. She stood and walked to the mirror in the corner of her office. She looked at her own reflection, sharp eyes, steady posture, a face that had learned pain but no longer belonged to it. And she said quietly, "Okay." Not as surrender, as a challenge. Because if Adrian Cole thought he could rewrite history, he was about to learn something. Maya Whitmore was not the same woman he humiliated. And the next time he tried to tear her down, he would find out she was made of something that didn't rip. The woman who returned unrecognizable. New York greeted Maya Whitmore with rain. Not the romantic kind that made the city glow, but the sharp, impatient rain that soaked sidewalks and rattled umbrellas. The kind that reminded you nothing here waited for you to be ready. She stepped out of the car in front of Calderon Global's headquarters, heels touching marble with deliberate calm. The building hadn't changed. She had. 2 years ago she walked into this place trying to be small enough to survive. Now she walked in knowing she belonged anywhere her feet touched. The security guard straightened when he saw her badge. "Welcome back, Ms. Whitmore." Not Mississippi. Not junior. Not transfer. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt longer than it should have. Maya kept her eyes forward, breathing evenly, refusing to let memory dictate her posture. Every floor passed felt like another layer of her old self peeling away. When the doors opened, the executive assistant outside Adrian Cole's office looked up and froze. There it was. Recognition. Surprise. Respect. "Maya?" the assistant said before catching herself. "I mean, Ms. Whitmore. Mr. Cole is expecting you." Of course he was. Adrian stood when she entered. That alone told her everything. 2 years ago he barely looked up when she spoke. Now he stared. Not rudely. Not arrogantly. Like someone seeing the consequences of their past for the first time. "Maya," he said quietly. She met his gaze without flinching. "Mr. Cole." The silence between them was thick with things neither of them could pretend didn't exist. "You've changed," he said finally. "Yes," she replied evenly. "So has my job title." A faint flicker crossed his face. Pride, regret, maybe both. They sat. The meeting stayed professional, but the tension was unmistakable. Maya outlined her integration strategy with surgical precision. She anticipated objections before they were voiced. She spoke with authority earned, not borrowed. Adrian listened more than he spoke. And when he did speak, he chose his words carefully, like someone aware that one misstep could reopen a wound that never fully healed. "This merger is fragile," he admitted. "One wrong move and public trust collapses." Maya closed her tablet. Trust doesn't collapse from mistakes. It collapses from arrogance. His jaw tightened. She wasn't attacking him. She was stating a fact. Over the next weeks, Maya became impossible to ignore. Executives sought her input. Departments adjusted their timelines around her decisions. Her name carried weight, not because she demanded it but because her results made arguing pointless. And people noticed something else. Adrian deferred to her. Not publicly at first. Subtly. In meetings he'd pause and look to her. Ask for her read before final decisions. Adjust course when she raised concerns. The man who once tore up her voice now made room for it. Whispers followed. She's the reason this deal isn't falling apart. He specifically requested her. Do you know why? She's sharper than half the VPs. Maya heard it all and let none of it change her. Because she didn't need validation anymore. One evening after a 16-hour day, she stayed late reviewing messaging for a sensitive press release. The office was nearly empty when Adrian walked into the conference room. You don't have to stay, he said quietly. She didn't look up. Deadlines don't care about comfort. He hesitated, then sat across from her. I owe you an apology, he said. Maya finally met his eyes. I don't want one. The word surprised even her. Adrian frowned. Apologies are for easing guilt, she continued calmly. Accountability is for changing behavior. I care about the second. He nodded slowly. Fair. Silence stretched. Then Adrian spoke again, voice lower. I kept something. Maya's body went still. I shouldn't have, he said quickly. And I understand if you don't want to hear this. But you deserve the truth. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small, worn envelope. Cream-colored. Repaired with delicate strips of tape. Maya's breath caught. Her letter. Restored. I taped it together that night, Adrian said. Every piece. I've carried it with me ever since. Not because I deserved it, but because I needed to remember what cowardice costs. Maya didn't touch it. She didn't cry. She felt something far more powerful. Closure. You didn't break me, she said softly. You revealed me. Adrian swallowed. I know. And I know I lost the right to ask for anything from you. She stood, smoothing her jacket. Good, she said. Because I'm not here to heal old wounds. I'm here to finish this merger, and then decide what comes next. As she walked out, Adrian remained seated, staring at the restored letter in his hands. For the first time, he understood something that power had hidden from him for years. Some people don't come back for forgiveness. They come back as proof. When power learns to bow. The closer the merger came to its final announcement, the heavier the air inside Calderon Global became. $12 billion didn't just shift numbers, it shifted loyalties, egos, and fear. Executives who once dismissed Maya now watched her carefully. Middle managers followed her directives without question. Even the board began requesting her assessments directly. And with every passing day, one truth became undeniable. Maya Whitmore was no longer a supporting role in this story. She was the axis everything turned on. The final review meeting was scheduled for Friday morning. Board members, legal teams, investors, everyone would be watching. One miscalculation, one poorly chosen phrase, and years of trust could evaporate in minutes. The night before, Maya stayed late alone in the strategy room, reviewing data for the 10th time. Not because she was unsure, but because excellence had become her armor. At 11:17 p.m., her phone buzzed. A message from Adrian. Can we talk? Just once. Not as CEO and executive, just two people. Maya stared at the screen. 2 years ago, that message would have unraveled her. Now it simply waited. She replied. 10 minutes. Conference room C. When Adrian arrived, he looked smaller. Not weaker, human. I won't take much of your time, he said quietly. Then don't waste it, Maya replied. He nodded. Tomorrow, the board intends to announce a restructuring. A new global VP role. Communications and strategy. Maya remained still. They want you, Adrian said. Effective immediately after the merger closes. Silence. Adrian continued, this position reports directly to the board. Not to me. Maya's eyes sharpened. Power without proximity to ego. He added, I didn't push this. I supported it, but they reached the conclusion on their own. Maya exhaled slowly. And why are you telling me this now? She asked. Because if you accept, Adrian said, voice steady but sincere, I want you to hear this first. He stood and bowed his head slightly. I was wrong, he said. Not just professionally. Morally. I used authority as a shield instead of a responsibility. And I learned too late that leadership without empathy is just control. Maya watched him closely. Not with bitterness. With clarity. I don't need you to kneel, she said. I needed you to learn. Adrian met her gaze. I have. The next morning, the boardroom buzzed with anticipation. Cameras waited. Analysts speculated. Stock prices hovered. Maya walked in calm, centered, unshakable. When the merger announcement was delivered flawlessly, applause filled the room. Then the board chair cleared her throat. There is one more matter, she said. Leadership reflects values. And today, we announce a role created not by favoritism, but by merit. All eyes turned to Maya. Ms. Maya Whitmore will assume the position of Global Vice President of Communications and Strategy. Pause. Then applause, strong, decisive, real. Maya stood. Not surprised. Not overwhelmed. Ready. She spoke briefly. I believe respect is not earned through power, but through consistency, humility, and listening. I intend to lead accordingly. Later that day, Maya packed up her temporary office. Her phone buzzed again, this time a message from her mother. You always deserved better. I'm so proud of you. Maya smiled. As she left the building, the rain had stopped. The city looked different when it no longer owned your fear. The letter that was never torn again. Power did not change Maya Whitmore. That was the first thing people noticed once the excitement faded. She didn't raise her voice in meetings. She didn't humiliate anyone to prove a point. She didn't weaponize authority the way it had once been used against her. Instead, she remembered. She remembered what it felt like to sit in the back of a room, heart pounding, hoping not to be seen, until being seen became a punishment. As global vice president, Maya made one change that rippled through Calderon Global like quiet thunder. No public shaming. No examples. No humiliation disguised as professionalism. Mistakes were addressed privately. Growth was encouraged openly. Respect became policy, not a favor. Some executives resisted at first. They were used to fear being an efficient tool. Maya proved something different. Productivity rose. Retention improved. Loyalty deepened. People worked harder when they weren't afraid. One afternoon, a junior analyst knocked nervously on Maya's office door. I'm sorry to bother you, the young woman said, clutching a folder tightly. I made an error in the market forecast. It might delay the launch. Maya stood, walked around her desk, and gently closed the door. Sit, she said calmly. The girl braced herself. Maya smiled softly. Tell me what you learned. The girl blinked. You're not angry? I'm invested, Maya replied. There's a difference. That was how leadership felt now. Months later, Adrian resigned. Not pushed. Not forced. He called Maya into his office, empty shelves, clean desk. I'm stepping away, he said. The company needs a leader who doesn't have to unlearn empathy. Maya nodded. I think that's honest. He hesitated, then spoke quietly. There's one thing I need to return to you. He placed the restored letter on her desk. It was never mine, he said. Maya looked at it. Then she slid it into the shredder. Not in anger. In freedom. I don't need it anymore, she said. Adrian smiled faintly. I know. As he left, Maya turned to the window, watching the city pulse with possibility. That evening she wrote a new letter. Not to a man. To herself. She wrote about resilience. About worth. About how humiliation can either break you, or build you into something undeniable. And when she finished, she folded the page and placed it in her desk. Untorn. Untouchable. Because some letters are not meant to be read aloud. They are meant to be lived.